Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I just felt like it was the best way to get this information across, and I want to make sure that you have as much time in your classrooms in the afternoon as possible. So, if it could be done by email, let's go that route. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is welcome you and invite you to Portable One. If you haven't been there yet this year, it looks a little bit different than last year. I just wanted to let you know some of the resources that we have available for you and your students at Portable One. The first and most important is that there are yummy treats. Of course, those will be available every Friday on Baked Goods Friday. And again, I extend the offer that if you would like to bring some baked goods as well, by all means, I have a countertop available for that. The next one is for your health and well-being. If you just need a breather, come on in and get some R&R. I'll be getting a little shag carpet and a comfy chair in my office area, which is the first space that you walk into in Portable One. Another important thing is I have purchased some feminine products for any female students that may need it. And you can let them know that Evie has some stuff that they can use in Portable One, and they can use our bathroom too for that purpose. I have moved all of the copy and workstation stuff into the side room and created a whole workstation space for you guys. So it'll be very helpful. If you haven't already, but if you're using the school Chromebooks, they should have the middle school copy machine already installed in your Chromebooks. If you're using a personal computer, you're going to have Irving install the copy machine into your laptop, which is what I need to do because I use my personal laptop. Anyways, I've also moved over the microwave and refrigerator into the side room as well on the kitchenette area. And there is a coffee maker and a general just space for your food if you want to kind of bring in your lunch, or if you want to make some coffee or heat up your lunch, that space is available for you. Another thing we have available in Portable One is a gender inclusive bathroom. And that's specifically, well, that's for teachers, but if we have any gender fluid students that are still feeling a little bit uncomfortable with using either of the bathrooms in the public student areas, they, with special permission, can use our gender inclusive bathroom in Portable One. I also have found lots of lined paper and graph paper. So if you need some of that, I am your girl and I can give you some of that in my office. I also ordered a giant plexiglass calendar to be put on the wall. So all events and due dates and testing scenarios, I'll be putting up on that calendar for you. And I hope that will be helpful. Okay, this should look familiar. I gave you this a couple days ago last week. I revised it because I realized that my numbering was off, and so I missed period 3, but now everyone should be in the right space. Let me know. So during these days, and this specific period is when I'm coming in for the weekly visits, okay? And what you will be finding, or what I'm looking for during those weekly visits, is I'll be looking for your do nows, how you are scaffolding and using UDL for your content, which I will be referencing your pacing guides for. I'm also looking for some project-based learning and how you're incorporating that in your lessons. I want to see how student participation and student-driven your classroom is. I'll be looking at your lessons to see what modifications you're using for students' needs. That goes into MLSS and structural scopes, and also if the student requires an IEP or an 504. It's really important to kind of look and see what the teacher-student dynamics are. And lastly, I will be looking at your exit tickets. So no pressure, but those are the type of things that I'm going to be looking at. Every Friday, I will be creating reflection that I'll be putting in your teacher files. Now, in this email that I'm sending to you, you'll find another link for your shared teacher files. And what you'll see is if you click on your name, you'll find folders for each of your classes. And inside those folders, you'll see a curriculum outline template for that class, pacing guide template, curriculum maps, and all of the coaching reflections that I'll be providing on Fridays. There's also going to be a folder set aside for sub lessons, and I've kind of divided that into 3 different groupings of sub lessons. So you will have general sub lessons, and those is what's going to be due in 2 weeks. Also, if you're needing some ideas of what kind of sub lessons, Jodan has a really great workbook that has great general lessons that you can include. So you can kind of scan those and put them in your subfolder and have those offhand. Also, getting on into the year, if you're sick or need to be out for some reason and you have a chance to submit sub lessons, usually, I know from my experience, I want it to have something to do with what they're currently learning. So this is a space to kind of incorporate anything that you want the sub to do with the topic that they're currently working on is the specific sub lessons folder. And the last one is indoor recess activities. So Jodan mentioned that the primary space for where students are going, if it's too cold or there's a situation where they can't be outside, is they will most likely be staying in your classroom. Now, you could either continue the lesson that you're working on, or you can use some of the indoor recess activities that you've set aside in this folder. Okay, so I just wanted to go over 2 specific templates that I have in your teacher files. The first one is your COT, which stands for Course Outline Template, also known as a syllabus. So you need one for each of your classes. They shouldn't be any more than 2 pages maximum. So you could just print out 1 page double-sided. It will be sent home and signed by both the student and the parent and collected and returned back to me. Okay, so this is an example of the course template that I've sent to you. So up here, you'll be putting your class title and be specific which grade and session grouping it is. Put your first and last name or how you want to be known as, and contact for parents. In the course overview, you will be inserting what the general course description of your classes, and you'll find that within the curriculum. Usually it's in the first couple of pages of your curriculum, what the course description entails. You do not need to do anything for the grading policy that's fixed and the demonstration of mastery, unless you want to include like specifically what your demonstration of mastery for each quarter is, but I'm still kind of going over that with you. So I would just leave that as it is as well. If you want to add or take out anything from the classwork section, the assessment section, retake policy, by all means, go ahead. There are some main things that should probably stay in there, but you'll be submitting these back to me, so I'll give you feedback on it. When Fran was talking about participation in sports activities, I included this at the bottom. Students receiving a C-, a 72% or below will be restricted from participation in sports events. There are other things that you can include in here, special topics that may only be specific to you. Jodan, in one of his syllabi, had a reference to animals in the classroom because he was teaching a science. But culturally, you have to be very specific about that and very sensitive of why you're using specific animals and where they're coming from. So if that's something that you might want to include in your syllabus, I would recommend having a conversation with Jodan because he has a lot to say about that. For the classroom policy, I have always used an acronym for the subject that I'm teaching. You can do that, but that's optional. You could also maybe even put that this will be established in the first week of school, and you can create the classroom policy or classroom rules or norms with your student. It's up to you. I included an instructional methodology. This is very specific to project-based learning. You can choose to keep it or put your own methodology in there. For instructional resources and materials, you can reference technology that you're using, texts, anything specific to being able to learn in your classroom can go in there. School supplies, I guess this is generally specific for your class too. If there's anything that you're going to be requiring the student to bring themselves, I would put that in there. Or just expectations of how you're going to be using supplies could be there as well. Or you can just leave it as it is. Other information for capstone, we have 2 major events that we are encouraging parents to participate and attend in, but you may have other things that you may want to include there. For instance, the science fair, I would put in there. Also, field trips, if you are planning on doing any field trips, I would recommend putting that in your COT as well. And then again, student signature and parent signature and date at the bottom. Let me know if you have any questions on that. Okay, the second document that I wanted to share with you is something that I have used when mentoring teachers for a really long time, and I personally feel it's the most helpful document. It's a pacing guide / curriculum calendar. So I've gone and I've went through our entire school year and chunked out each quarter and what the demonstration of mastery for each quarter should be. And then in the lessons and activities, you just put the name of the lesson that you're working on for that day. And it's really just for pacing, and it's very helpful to kind of really see how everything lines up, because oftentimes timing and pacing is one of the biggest issues for teachers. You know, they get to the end of the semester or the end of the year and they barely have finished all the required material that they're working for. By all means, you do not need to fill out this entire 5-page pacing guide. I would recommend putting in big events or big projects if you know what they are, but I'm only requiring you to put in 2-week chunking. So the first 2 weeks and then the following 2 weeks. So there should always generally be 2 weeks on your curriculum calendar, but you're always going to be going back in and revisiting it and changing things, just because things will constantly be changing in your classroom. And that's perfectly fine. That's expected, actually. So that's also why we're only doing it every 2 weeks. But again, I encourage you, if you want to continue further than 2 weeks, it's up to you. This is a guide to help you. I'll also be using this to check and see where you're at, if you're close to it or if you're way off from it during our weekly visits. And again, that's not a problem. We just need to revise it and see what will be more helpful for you, right? So put your name and your subject at the top. So this is designed for each class. If you want to do just one for each grade level, that's fine. But we all know that each class functions differently. The pacing is going to be off for each one of them. So if you are just going to do one for each class, for each grade level, I would recommend splitting up the lesson activity into 3 sections or 2 sections, depending on how many of each grade you're doing, so that you can see the difference in the pacing for each one of them. I've also included all of our holidays and our breaks. So I hope that is helpful for you. I just learned of some information about our iStation testing. And so once I clarify that, we can go ahead and put those into your pacing guide as well, because that will affect the content that you're able to teach that day. All right, I think this is probably the most important slide. They're the due dates, and this is why I wanted to get this email out to you as soon as possible because your COTs are due this Friday. Really, they shouldn't take that much work. There's only a couple things that you need to adjust and change and put in there. So hopefully that won't be too difficult for you. Also, the first 2 weeks of your pacing guide is due this Friday as well. The last thing that's due this Friday is supply request because we want to get that first order in as soon as possible so that we could get your supplies as soon as possible. And then we'll be asking for a more significant supply request for semester 1 in a little bit. But right now, what do you need immediately so we can help you with that? So that's due this Friday as well. The COTs are going to do this Friday. You submit them. I'm just going to look over them, give you the A-OK, and then they need to be print ready by Monday to hand out to your class and go over expectations and the trajectory of what's going on with your subject so that they can take them home. I need to have all of them signed and turned into me by the following Friday. I will be holding on to all of those signed signatures for you. I have also included curriculum maps in your shared folders, but I really want Jodan to kind of go over the layout and his expectations and the time frame for those as well. And the last due date is for subplans and indoor resource activities. They will be due on Friday, August 18th. We wanted to give you just a little bit more time to get those in. And again, all that you really need to do is include activities in the general subplans file. That's it. I hope this was helpful and informative. If you have any more questions, by all means, come to Portable One or, shoot me back an email or a text. And I hope you have a lovely evening or a great workday. Bye.